Have you ever noticed how a woman can go from texting you nonstop to suddenly disappearing, almost as if you no longer matter? One moment she's laughing at your jokes, sending heart emojis, showing genuine interest, and the next, silence. You stare at your phone, replaying every message in your head, wondering what you did wrong. This experience is one of the most confusing and emotionally frustrating situations men face in dating. And the worst part is that most men immediately blame themselves. They assume they said the wrong thing, weren't interesting enough, or somehow lost their value overnight. That belief is not only inaccurate, it's destructive. The truth is, this pattern has far less to do with your worth and far more to do with emotional dynamics and human psychology. Attraction doesn't operate in a straight line. It fluctuates, tests boundaries, and responds to emotional strength long before logic ever gets involved. This video is not about tricks, manipulation, or chasing validation. It's about understanding what's actually happening beneath the surface when her behavior suddenly changes. Once you understand this, you stop reacting emotionally, you stop sabotaging yourself, and you start responding in a way that naturally restores attraction, without begging, forcing, or losing your dignity. What you're about to learn will change how you interpret silence, distance, and uncertainty forever. When a woman suddenly becomes distant after showing strong interest, it feels intentional, almost calculated. But in most cases, it's not a conscious attempt to confuse or hurt you. It's a natural response rooted in emotional evaluation. Attraction is not static. For many women, interest comes in waves. When things feel too predictable or emotionally intense too quickly, distance is often created to restore balance. This space allows her to observe how you handle uncertainty, independence, and emotional pressure. Not because she wants control, but because emotional stability is deeply attractive. Cold, hot behavior often serves as a subconscious test. She's not asking questions out loud, but her actions are asking them for her. Can you stay grounded when attention fades? Do you maintain your sense of self without reassurance, or do you collapse into anxiety and overreaction? Men often misinterpret this shift as rejection and immediately try to fix it. Ironically, that response usually produces the exact opposite result. Over-explaining, chasing, or demanding clarity removes emotional tension and signals insecurity. It's important to understand that this distance isn't proof of lost attraction. More often, it's a moment of assessment. How you respond during this phase carries more weight than anything you said while things were going well. Once you recognize cold, hot behavior as part of emotional evaluation rather than a personal attack, you regain clarity and control. The moment her behavior changes, most men react on instinct, and that instinct usually works against them. Silence triggers anxiety. Distance feels like danger, and without realizing it, men begin to sabotage their own position. The most common reaction is panic. Texts become longer and more frequent. Questions appear that were never there before. Are you okay? Did I do something wrong? Why are you acting different? Each message is sent with the hope of restoring connection, but emotionally, it communicates the opposite. From a psychological perspective, this behavior signals emotional dependence. It shows that your sense of stability is tied to her attention. While the intention is reassurance, the impact is pressure. And pressure is one of the fastest ways to drain attraction. Another mistake men make is abandoning their own lives the moment she pulls back. Hobbies, goals, routines, and social connections suddenly become less important than monitoring her responses. This shift doesn't go unnoticed. Emotional focus narrows, and your perceived value drops. The key issue is not effort, it's emotional imbalance. Attraction thrives when there is mutual interest, not emotional chasing. Men fail this test not because they lack value, but because they react instead of remaining composed. The men who succeed are not indifferent. They are emotionally disciplined. They observe first, regulate their reactions, and allow dynamics to unfold without losing their center. When she suddenly becomes distant, your mind naturally looks for explanations. You replay conversations, analyze messages, and search for the exact moment things went wrong. This mental spiral feels logical, but it's built on a false assumption that her behavior is a direct reflection of your worth. In reality, her distance is rarely personal. Emotional attention fluctuates based on internal factors that often have nothing to do with you. Stress at work, personal responsibilities, emotional processing, or simply needing space can all change how present someone appears. These shifts happen quietly and are often misunderstood. Men tend to personalize distance because validation feels good and its absence feels threatening, but taking her behavior as a verdict on your value creates unnecessary anxiety, and anxiety leads to reactive decisions. The moment you start trying to fix something that isn't broken, you lose emotional ground. The mindset shift is simple but powerful. Stop viewing her distance as rejection. Start seeing it as observation. She's responding to the dynamic between you, not grading your worth as a man. Once you internalize this, everything changes. You stop chasing clarity, stop demanding reassurance, and regain emotional stability. And that stability, calm, grounded, self-assured, is what keeps attraction alive when uncertainty appears. The first step to regaining her interest feels counterintuitive, which is why most men resist it. When she becomes distant, the natural urge is to close the gap immediately, to text more, explain yourself, or restore the connection by force. This reaction comes from fear, not strategy. Withdrawing without panic does not mean ignoring her, playing games, or acting cold out of spite. It means giving space without emotional withdrawal. You remain calm, respectful, and grounded while shifting your focus back to your own life. Psychologically, this works because absence creates contrast. When you are always available, there is no tension, no mystery, and no emotional breathing room. But when your presence becomes less predictable, without hostility, it invites reflection. She begins to notice the change, not because you demanded attention, but because you stopped chasing it. This step also sends a powerful, unspoken message. You value your time, your energy, and yourself. Emotional self-respect is felt instantly. Panic communicates need. Calm communicates confidence. Imagine she starts replying less after weeks of consistent attention. Instead of flooding her with messages, you continue your routine. You go to the gym, focus on work, spend time with friends. You reply when appropriate, but you don't pursue conversation endlessly. After a few days, she notices something different. Your energy hasn't collapsed. Your life hasn't paused. And that composure often triggers renewed curiosity. Withdrawing without panic isn't about manipulation. It's about emotional control. And emotional control is the foundation of attraction. Calm confidence is one of the most powerful and least understood traits in attraction. It isn't loud, dominant, or performative. It's quiet, steady, and deeply reassuring. When a man remains composed during uncertainty, it signals emotional strength, and emotional strength is felt on a subconscious level. From a psychological standpoint, humans are naturally drawn to stability. When someone reacts calmly to emotional shifts, it suggests self-trust and inner security. In contrast, overreacting, demanding reassurance, or trying to control outcomes communicates emotional fragility, even if unintentionally. When she pulls back and you stay centered, something important happens. You separate your emotional state from her behavior. This creates polarity. Instead of two anxious energies colliding, there is balance. And balance is attractive. Calm confidence also implies choice. It subtly communicates that your life does not revolve around one source of validation. You are engaged in your own purpose, routines, and direction. That independence makes your attention feel valuable rather than guaranteed. This is why emotional regulation often matters more than words. You don't need to explain your confidence. You demonstrate it by how you respond or don't respond when attention fluctuates. In moments of distance, calm confidence keeps attraction alive. It prevents you from self-sabotage and positions you as someone who is emotionally grounded, secure, and capable of leading himself through uncertainty. Once you've mastered withdrawing without panic, the next step is where the real shift begins, increasing your perceived value. This has nothing to do with pretending to be someone else or trying to impress her. It's about reinforcing who you already are when you're operating at your best. Most men make the mistake of waiting. They pause their lives, hoping her attention will return so they can feel stable again. That waiting energy communicates need. Instead, her distance should become your signal to redirect energy inward and upward. Increasing your value means investing in areas of your life that create momentum: your health, your career, your skills, your discipline, and your social connections. When you are progressing, your energy changes. You speak differently, you move differently, and that shift is felt even without words. This step works because attraction responds to self-direction. Women are naturally drawn to men who are building something, men with purpose, structure, and forward motion. When she sees that your life continues to expand without her validation, respect quietly grows. Imagine that instead of monitoring your phone, you commit to a fitness goal you've been postponing, or you focus intensely on a professional objective. Maybe you reconnect with friends or explore a new interest. When interaction happens again, your presence feels fuller, more grounded. You're no longer seeking attention. You're offering it selectively. That reversal changes the entire dynamic. Increasing your perceived value isn't about proving anything to her. It's about reminding yourself who you are when you're not chasing approval. And that version of you is naturally more attractive. A full life creates a powerful psychological signal. It communicates that a man is self-directed, emotionally independent, and grounded in his own purpose. These traits are not learned through words. They are felt through presence, behavior, and consistency. When a man has structure in his life, his attention carries weight. It isn't freely available at all times, and because of that, it becomes valuable. This isn't about scarcity tactics. It's about natural priorities. A man who is engaged in his own growth doesn't need constant validation to feel secure. From a psychological perspective, attraction moves toward momentum. People are drawn to those who are going somewhere, building something, and expanding their world. When your life feels rich and meaningful, your energy changes. You become less reactive and more selective. Women sense this quickly. A man with a full life doesn't chase attention. He chooses where to place it. That choice creates respect, and respect fuels attraction. This is why focusing on your own direction is never wasted effort. Even if no one is watching, you benefit. And when she does notice, she's not responding to a tactic. She's responding to the version of you who is stable, fulfilled, and emotionally complete on his own. After you've created space without panic and strengthened your sense of value, the final step is to reignite curiosity. This is where many men go wrong, not by doing too little, but by doing too much. Curiosity doesn't grow from over-explaining. It grows from subtlety. Reigniting curiosity is not about playing mind games or acting distant on purpose. It's about allowing parts of your life to remain unfolding rather than fully revealed. When everything is predictable and explained, there is nothing left to discover. Psychologically, curiosity is triggered by novelty and incompleteness. When she senses that there is more to you than what she currently knows, interest naturally returns. This doesn't require mystery for mystery's sake. It simply means you don't narrate your entire life in real time. Timing matters here. You don't suddenly flood her with attention. Instead, you allow interaction to feel light, grounded, and slightly open-ended. You might casually mention a new project, a recent experience, or a shift in your routine without offering details unless she asks. For example, instead of saying, "I've been busy working on a new thing and it's really exciting, let me explain everything," you simply say, "I've been focused on something new lately. It's been good." Then you stop. That pause invites curiosity. It allows her imagination to engage. She leans in because she wants to know more, not because you pushed information toward her. When curiosity is reignited, the dynamic changes again. She begins to invest emotionally, not because she's pressured, but because she's intrigued by the man who is calm, progressing, and no longer fully predictable. Once curiosity begins to return, discipline becomes even more important. This is the phase where many men undo their progress by abandoning restraint too early. Timing and communication matter because attraction grows in rhythm, not in rush. The first rule is simple. Don't over-communicate. Respond thoughtfully, not instantly. This doesn't mean ignoring her. It means matching the pace of the interaction rather than exceeding it. When energy is balanced, tension remains healthy. Second, avoid emotional dumping. This is not the moment to explain how confused you were, how much you missed her, or how difficult the distance felt. Those conversations shift the focus away from connection and back toward reassurance seeking. Third, let silence breathe. Silence isn't a threat when you're grounded. It's space, and space allows interest to build naturally. Finally, keep interactions light and present focused. Curiosity thrives when conversations feel open, not heavy or outcome driven. Good timing communicates emotional intelligence. It shows that you trust the process rather than trying to control it. When your communication feels calm, measured, and intentional, attraction has room to grow instead of being suffocated. One of the main reasons attraction fades isn't a lack of effort, it's misplaced effort. When uncertainty appears, many men unintentionally make decisions that weaken their position instead of strengthening it. The most common mistake is excessive messaging. Sending multiple texts when she hasn't responded doesn't create closeness, it creates pressure. Even if your intentions are good, the emotional message behind overcommunication is neediness, and neediness quickly erodes attraction. Another mistake is asking for reassurance or explanations. Questions like, "Why are you acting different?" or "Did I do something wrong?" place her in a position of emotional authority while lowering your own. Attraction grows through self-respect, not self-doubt. Many men also abandon their routines when her attention fades. Friends, hobbies, fitness, and personal goals suddenly become secondary. This shift is subtle but significant. When your world shrinks, so does your perceived value. Over-explaining is another silent attraction killer. Constantly justifying your actions, schedules, or decisions signals insecurity. A man who is comfortable with himself doesn't feel the need to narrate or defend his life. Finally, reacting emotionally instead of observing calmly turns temporary distance into permanent disengagement. Attraction is sensitive to emotional imbalance. Avoiding these mistakes doesn't require perfection, just awareness. When you stop chasing, over-explaining, and seeking validation, you naturally step into a more grounded and attractive role. At this stage, something important begins to shift. You're no longer reacting to her behavior. You're responding from a place of stability. This is what an attraction reset looks like. It's not a dramatic moment or a forced conversation. It's a gradual change in energy and dynamic. When you stop chasing, stop over-explaining, and stop panicking, the emotional balance between you changes. You move from being reactive to being grounded, from seeking validation to choosing when and how you engage. That shift is felt immediately. The attraction reset happens because you've reclaimed control over your emotions, not over her. You're no longer trying to manage her interest. You're managing your own presence. And that's where confidence comes from. As you withdraw calmly, increase your value, and reintroduce curiosity, she begins to experience you differently. Your attention is no longer guaranteed. Your energy feels steady, not anxious. Your life feels full, not dependent. This often leads to a subtle reversal. She initiates more, she asks questions, she invests emotionally, not because she's pressured, but because the dynamic feels safe, intriguing, and balanced again. The reset isn't about winning or manipulating, it's about restoring a natural polarity where attraction can exist. When you operate from self-respect and emotional discipline, connection becomes mutual rather than forced. And that's when attraction has space to rebuild authentically. Here's the truth most men don't want to hear, but need to understand. When a woman pulls away, the men who panic almost never regain attraction, not because they aren't good enough, but because their reaction confirms emotional instability. Chasing, pleading, or over-explaining doesn't create closeness. It locks in a dynamic where respect fades and attraction struggles to survive. Once a man positions himself as emotionally dependent, it becomes very difficult to reverse that perception. The men who succeed are not the loudest, the most aggressive, or the most persuasive. They are the most composed. They understand that attraction responds to emotional control, not emotional pressure. This doesn't mean being cold or indifferent. It means trusting yourself enough to not chase outcomes you can't control. It means allowing space without fear and choosing growth over reassurance. The controversial part is this: sometimes doing less is the most powerful move. Restraint communicates strength. Silence, when grounded, speaks louder than words. Men who master this don't just regain interest, they gain something more important. They gain self-respect, and that self-respect becomes the foundation for every healthy connection that follows. 14. Final takeaway and call to action, approx 160 words. If you remember only one thing from this video, let it be this: regaining her interest is not about tricks, tactics, or manipulation. It's about emotional mastery. When she goes cold, you don't chase, you don't panic, you don't collapse inward. You step back, Strengthen your life and allow curiosity to return naturally. You respond with calm, not fear, with self respect, not urgency. These principles don't just apply to one woman, they apply to every relationship you'll ever have. The man who remains grounded during uncertainty is the man who is respected, desired, and remembered. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever experienced sudden distance or mixed signals? How did you respond and what did you learn from it? Share your experience in the comments. I read them all and sometimes I respond personally. In the next video, I'll explain why subtle unpredictability, used the right way, can deepen attraction without saying a single desperate word. Subscribe, stay sharp, and I'll see you there.